This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah.
So this is regarding the pick list values. So there is a checkbox for restrict pick list values, right? If I uncheck that, in the UI, I am not able to enter other than whatever is defined. That checkbox only works for the when your data loader.
So you have checked or unchecked?
Unchecked.
Okay. If you uncheck, what is happening?
In the UI, when I try to enter new values, what are in the other than whatever is listed, it is not allowing.
So, but how can you enter? It is a pick list, right? So when you try to open that field, it will show only the available pick list values.
Correct.
How you are
But
able to enter? Do you
I
find any
want
option? Find any option, right?
no.
That is only when you load through backend or when
Oh,
you
that is
develop the custom.
okay.
Okay.
And I did not receive the link for flows recordings.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, I don't know. Yesterday you attended, but today it is exclusively for development. Okay. If you have any questions for administration, already we discussed all the questions. I don't know. I think you missed yesterday's session.
No, I submitted
In
the link for that flows.
Okay, I'll send it. Still, I did
Okay.
not send it, I think.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So today, so we are starting with the development. So what exactly we discuss as part of the Salesforce development? So we'll discuss and continue. Some of you, if you already don't know about administration, I think it's better to know the basics of administration so that you can understand the development easily. So to start with, so I believe all of you have the developer edition account. So here, some of you, if you don't have the account, so I recommend you to register here and have the account. So going forward, you need to practice in the developer edition account, whatever we register for free. So as part of the development, the Salesforce, they are providing the platform. The platform technically we call as Force.com platform. Technically, they say the name of the platform as Force.com platform. Whatever the development we do, all the development related logic will execute on the platform, and the platform gives the results after executing the logic. So as part of the Salesforce in the development, almost we work on all the areas. We are like a full stack developer. If you think about any website or any screen, let's say this is one of the page. So we have the UI, and also based on some of the actions we do on the UI, internally in the background it executes some logic. And also here when I enter some username and password and login, internally system execute the logic. It will send this information to database. It will validate in the database, and if there is a match, it will allow to log in. Otherwise, it will throw the error. So that's what will happen. So almost all the layers, the UI in Salesforce, we also work with developing the custom web pages. So, and also once we interact on the UI to execute in the background, so we also write the business logic. The business logic for that area also we have. And also when you write the logic, it will interact with the database, and it will maybe query the data from database or load the data into database. So all those operations to do from business logic, it needs to interact with the database. When you work with the Salesforce development, we work in all these areas. We work with the UI development. We work with the developing business logic. So we also work with writing the database commands. So as part of the UI, so what exactly we are going to discuss? The first thing, like any other web page development, here we use HTML. If you know the basics, or anyway, based on the requirement, we discuss the basics and continue. So we use HTML, we use JavaScript, and we also use CSS, JavaScript. We use CSS cascading style sheets, and also specific to Salesforce, there is a markup language called Visual Force. We mainly discuss about the Visual Force, and while developing Visual Force markup language, the web pages, we also write the HTML and also use JavaScript and CSS, all those things. And also one of the latest framework, Lightning. Lightning is one of the framework to develop the web pages, the UI development. Again, under this, there are two categories. So one of the framework is RR, Lightning component or Lightning applications. People say RR or Lightning components. And one of the other framework is LWC, which is latest. This was introduced in 2015. LWC is introduced in 2019. So the full form is so Lightning Web Components. So these are the things. Okay. So as part of the UI, almost all these things we discuss. And for Lightning, due to the duration of the course, up to basics of Lightning I'll cover as part of the development. Exclusively if you want the in-depth understanding. So if you want in-depth understanding of the RA and LWC, I might start a separate batch. Maybe you can consider joining if you want. Otherwise, whatever the basics I explained, those are sufficient. On top of that, you can improve. And also the business logic, as part of the business logic layer. Here in Salesforce, we use one of the programming language called Apex. Apex is one of the programming language, and many people asking, do I need to know Java and all those things? So no need to. I'm not expecting anyone to know the Java or something else. Okay, so we start from very basics. What is a program? From that we start and we discuss about all the in-depth concepts of the Apex. So this is what we discuss. And also the database. As part of the database layer, we also write the commands, but it's not that very complex. The platform simplified many things when compared to other platforms. Okay, so with 1 hour discussion, we'll get to know how we write the query, how we can perform the DML operations and all those things. Okay, that much easy. It's not too much complex. Here we use SOQL, SOSL, Salesforce Object Query Language, Salesforce Object Switch Language. We use DML. By using all these things, we perform the operations on the data in the database. On all these areas, we work as a Salesforce developer. Okay, so everything in depth we discuss, but only the thing, this one, basics of RA and LWC we discuss due to the duration of the course. So to discuss these things itself, it is taking around 2 months. Okay, so that's the thing. And also people ask, do we discuss about the integration? So integration is part of the business logic, which executes in the background. We also discuss about the integration using SOAP API, using REST API, different ways of how we can authenticate and all those things we discuss as part of this course. So these are the high level topics. in-depth topics. There are many more topics when you see Apex. So if you see Visual Force, there are many topics. But at high level, these are the topics which we are going to understand and discuss. Okay. To start with, for all these things, the business logic layer, this part is important. So we should be able to write the program, and we should be able to uh, call the program and understand how it works. So once we understand this Apex, slowly we'll understand about the other topics based on the requirement. Okay. So now I'm going to start with explaining about the Apex, one of the programming language from the basics. So first of all, maybe so most of you, maybe some of you, if you are from the non-technical background, so I need to consider everyone. So that's the reason. First, I start from what is a program, how exactly it works, and all those things. The first thing when we start with any programming language is the programming language is case sensitive or case insensitive. Apex is one of the programming languages which is case insensitive. Apex is case insensitive. Insensitive means, so even though, let's say, for example, we have like this. In Java and other programming languages. So if you see one of the famous language, Java, Java is case sensitive. In Java, all these are different system treat as different. But in Apex, so all these system consider as same because it is case insensitive. Now, before we start understanding a program, so what is the program? So how we need to understand by comparing with the day-to-day what we do. So for that, I am opening one of the document. So let me open one of the document. So if you see this, so just on day to day, so all of us we write some English, right? We deal with the English language. We write some paragraphs in English and all those things. So if you compare easily, you can understand. So if you take the English, so one of the paragraph you are writing, how we form the sentence? First, we need to form the sentence. Set of words, multiple words by combining, by following the grammar, we form the sentence. So here the program instead of sentence here we call as statement. In a program, each and every line, whatever we see, we call that as a statement. Maybe in English language we call as sentence. Sentence will be formed by using the set of words. So here each word in a program, whatever you see, technically we call as token. So set of tokens form a statement. But in English, if you are combining the words and forming the sentence, we have to follow the grammar. If you don't follow the grammar, the sentence won't give the meaning. In the same way, here the tokens, by combining tokens, we form the statement. Here we need to follow the syntax as per the rules of the programming language. We need to form and write a valid statement. Here instead of grammar, we call as syntax. And in English, the set of sentences will become a paragraph. Here, set of statements. We write multiple statements to form a paragraph. But when you are forming the paragraph in English, if you don't place the sentences in proper order, it won't give the meaning. It won't give the proper meaning. In the same way, when you write the program, whatever the statements we write should be in a proper order. So that we call as flow. By maintaining a proper order, we write the statements and system will execute. So the set of statements finally we call as a program. Maybe in English we call as paragraph. So like that. So if you compare, I think easily you can understand. And also when you take word, the word can be a noun or adjective or verb, right? So here the token, again there are different types of tokens. In a specific way, if you want to say, so we have keywords, we have identifiers, we have operators, we have literals. So all these are the different types of tokens. Okay, so just try to compare and understand. So just the program is nothing but the set of statements in a proper order. The statement is the set of tokens. If you don't know what to call each and every word in a program, we call as a token. By combining the tokens, by following the syntax, we form the statement. Okay, so going forward, when we discuss, I will exactly explain when we call token as a keyword, when we call token as identifier, and all those things. Okay, so this is just to compare and understand the terminology. Okay, so now let's understand about some types of statements. If you take English, right? So when you write multiple sentences, we combine the sentences with and, right? Or if, right? But so we combine multiple, we say compound statement, something like that. Here also, when you write the statements, there are different types of statements. When you write a statement, what is the purpose of writing the statement? There are different categories of the purpose of writing the statement. So that we are going to understand. Okay, so here I'm going to explain about the types of statements, so that after discussing this, when we see one of the program, we'll understand why they are writing that statement and what is the purpose of that. Okay, so types of statements. First, I'm going to list out the types of statements. So memory statements, arithmetic or logical statements, conditional statements, looping, controlling statements, and input-output statements. Okay, so what are these? So why we write this and what is the purpose? We are going to understand each type and see, write some statements and see how these will work. The first type is memory statement. So why we need to allocate the memory? This is to allocate the memory. So when you write any program, in general, the purpose of writing any program is to automate some of the real world calculations and on day-to-day whatever we do. For example, the calculator. So why we have calculator? We can also add and subtract and calculate. But calculator gives the results very fast and more accurate. Right? Internally, calculator, when you type something and execute, it will run a program and give the result. Right? So the thing is, any program, it takes some data as input and apply some logic on the data and give some of the information as an output. Let's say when we go to ATM, we withdraw the money. When you withdraw the money, automatically it will show the balance by deducting. Internally, there is a program which will deduct and which is giving the result. So when you go to ATM, we have to input the data. Without you enter anything, it cannot understand. We give some data as input and take that and perform some of the actions. Finally, we see the result. So when you deal with any program, since we deal with some input data and also to show some results, some output data, everything will be there. To hold that data, system needs memory. Some space should be allocated so that whatever the data we input or whatever the data it calculates, To store that, it needs these memory statements. Okay, so to allocate the memory, to utilize the memory in a better way, if you take most of the programming languages, you see data types, one of the concept. If you don't mention the data type, let's say in a generic way, if it is assigning same memory for any type of data, the memory will be wasted. That's why to utilize the memory, whatever system allocates, we have to mention the data type, so that for that particular data type, whatever the memory is needed, system will allocate only that much memory. Okay, so due to that reason, we are going to understand about one of the concepts called data types. Now here, whatever I'm going to explain, these are the data types related to Apex programming language. Since as part of the Salesforce, we use Apex exclusively for Apex programming languages, whatever the data types we deal, I'm going to list out those types. Maybe when you deal with other programming languages, the types of data might be different. Okay, so here in Apex, what are the data types we have? So let's list out those data types. So one of the data type, blob. Blob is one of the data type. So when we define blob data type, if you want to store some file information, file can be image or a Word document or Excel file or any PDF file or anything. If you want to store the file, for that we have to allocate the memory using blob data type. So blob full form is binary large object to store files. It can be Word document, it can be PDF document, right? Any file if you want to store, for that we use blob, one of the data type. We have one more data type, Boolean. Boolean, it accepts either true or false value. If you have a requirement to hold only true or false, in those situations we use Boolean data type. And so we also have date, one of the data type, to hold the date. So based on the time zone. So if you see in Salesforce, there is a default time zone, America, Los Angeles. We can also change the time zone. So based on the time zone, there are different date formats. So maybe in US, they follow like this. Maybe in other country, they follow some other format. So it will take the input in that format. So that is the date data type. And we also have date time. Along with the date, it will also take the time. There is a specific format. Going forward, we'll deal with that format. Okay, so the next type is decimal. Decimal means it is a number with the decimal digits. So for example, most of the times currency, let's say $10.65, right? So currency, mainly people represent with the 2 decimal digits. After a number, they also want decimal digits. Okay, so in those situations, we deal with the decimal type. Decimal is nothing but a number with the decimal digits. And we have one more data type called double. Double is also the decimal type. But if there is a bigger decimal value beyond the capacity of the decimal, if you see sometimes we use exponential, right? Exponential, e square, right? So like that. So when you have such kind of huge numbers, that time we use the double. Right? Double is like huge decimal value. To hold that, we use double. And one of the other data type, ID. If you see in Salesforce, database tables we call as objects. We have standard objects, we have custom objects. We create the records into those objects. Whenever we create the record, system generate the unique record ID. to maintain the uniqueness for the record. That record ID can be either 15 digit or 18 digit. To hold either 15 digit or 18 digit IDs, this ID data type will be used. And also we have integer type. Integer is also a number without any decimal value. For example, if you say quantity, right? How much quantity? 10 or 100 or 200. When you are counting, we say 1, 2, 3, right? So if you are not dealing with the decimal digits, only the rounded numbers, mainly while counting quantity, in those kind of situations, we use integer data type. Okay, and also we have long. Long is also the integer data type, but the huge integer value, right? If it is beyond the capacity of the integer size, so that time we use the long data type. And also we have object, one of the data type. So object is a one of the generic type. Generic. Sometimes we don't know what is the data we store. We don't know it is a number. We don't know it is a boolean or it is a date. When you see such kind of situation while developing the logic, we use the object data type. Object value can be decimal or integer or any type. So that is one of the generic type. And also we have string data type. String is to store the text starting from single character, words, sentences, paragraph, right? You can type. The rule is it should be enclosed in the single quotes. So make sure to use the single quote. Double quotes are not supported, right? So something. So keep on, you can type. So that is the string data type. And also we have time, one of the data type, to hold the time. So these are the data types we have. So when you deal with the data, we'll get to know which kind of data we deal. We decide which data is suitable based on the requirement and allocate the memory as per that. Now, since we know the data types, so let's allocate the memory and see how we can allocate and how we can store the values. Now, for example, so let's say I want to store one of the person first name, right? So first name is which type? Right? Name is a text. Text means string. We have to consider using string. We are writing one of our first statement. We have to mention the data type, string, space, and give the name of the memory. Right? Because let's say they also want to allocate memory for last name. They also want to allocate memory for city, country. All those are the string types. But again and again, if you want to refer the value, whatever, the memory, whatever we allocated, we should have some name. With that name, we can call and we can access the value. For that purpose, we have to give a name for the memory. So here, I'm giving the name as first name, data type, space, and the name of the memory. And in general, in English, if you want to end a sentence, we use full stop. Here we use semicolon. Instead of full stop, here we use semicolon. Only that's the difference. Each statement should end with semicolon. Okay, so this is one of the memory statement. And also, I want to store the last name. Again, one more memory string, last name, and again, ending of the statement. Keep on, we can define. And also, if you are defining the multiple memory locations of the same type, so that time what we can do, we can use comma and allocate. Anyway, all those are the string types, right? I can say string, first name, comma, last name, comma, let's say city, comma, country. So whatever the string values are there, all those values separated with comma you can define and end the statement. Now we allocated memory for four memory locations we have allocated. And also while allocating the memory, if you want to store some default value, you can also enter some value. Right, as a default value, I'm giving this one. So later they can replace. Okay. So that is the way how we define. Let's say they also want to store the age of a person. Age means, so they want age as a rounded number, like 25, 26, 30. So if you want the number without any decimal digits, we go with the integer data. Right? Integer age is equal to, if you want, you can assign, otherwise you can end it. If you want to assign the default value, you can also assign. Select that. So keep on, we can define and we can use. Right? So now let's say they want one true or false value, boolean, is graduated. So let's say whether the person is graduated or not. We supply either true or false. Select that. And if you don't want to assign here, so this is the ending of the memory statement. Later in the next statement, so this is the memory location. Further, you can assign the value and end the statement. So like that, we write the statements. Now here I am writing these statements and I am saying these are the name of the memory locations. But technically, whenever you write any logic, each and every word, whatever we see here, we call as a token, right? Everything is a token. But token, there are specific type of tokens. We have keywords, we have identifiers, we have operators. In this logic, which one we call as keyword, which one we call as identifier, understand further. So let's say in the above statements, so keywords are the tokens provided by the system, which we cannot change the meaning. Those things we call as keywords. If you see string is provided by the system. When you define string and after that if you give some name, system will take only the string values. That behavior we cannot change. That is the system behavior. That is the name given by the system. The tokens which are provided by the system and which we cannot change the meaning, those we call as keywords. In the above statements, string is a keyword. Integer is a keyword. It accepts a number. Boolean is a keyword. It accepts either true or false. All those are the keywords. And in the above statement, identifiers. Identifiers means as a developer to identify in our program to identify, we can give any name, whatever you feel as a developer. There are some rules. So as per the rules, whatever the name we feel we can give. In the above statement, the first name, last name. So all those are the identifiers. So maybe some other developer might give some other name. Maybe I give the names like this. Maybe some other developer might give something like this. Okay? So in the above statements, so all these, whatever we define, as a developer, we define whatever we want. So all these are the identifiers. Identifiers, technically, we also call as data members. When you read some technical documents and technical topics, people say data members, right? It stores the data. So data member or identifiers are almost same. But also on day-to-day, if you say data member, if you say identifier, people might not understand. The day-to-day terminology to refer this, we call these as variables. The name, whatever we give for the memory, that one technically in an understandable way by everyone, on day-to-day language we call as variable. All these are the variables: first name, last name, city, country. All these are the variables defined as we defined as a developer. As a developer, if you want to give like this, you can give. Right? It's based on the developer mindset. They decide what is the name they want to give to hold the value. So those things technically we call as variables. On day-to-day going forward, I'll say variable. Okay. So just understand. And also, if you see, we have other types operators. Here, equal to is one of the operator. That is the assignment operator. It is assigning right hand side value to the left hand side. Okay. In the above example, operators, equal to is one of the operator. Going forward, we use plus, minus, multiplication, star, division, many other operators. So these are the operators. And also we have literals and strings. Literals are numbers. In the above program, 26 is a number. Strings. In the above program, this is a string. It's like that. So everything is a token. Especially if you want to say the tokens which are provided by the system, we call that as a keyword. As a developer, whatever the name we give for memory, we call that as identifier. And we use operators to perform some of the calculations and assignments, all those things. And the literals are the numbers and the strings. So we have different types. Okay, just understand these things. And also from day one, try to focus on the indentation. Okay, so technically we call as indentation. Indentation means the programming standards. Even though you don't follow, nothing will happen. Right? It's not like 100% required. But if you follow, you can prove that you are an experienced developer. If someone see your code, they feel better. They think that some experienced developer developed the code. Okay, for that purpose, we have to follow the indentation. Indentation means programming standards. All developers follow certain kind of standards. If you also follow those standards, it is good. Okay, so that is indentation. Now, what is the indentation I have followed for this, whatever I wrote? If you see, whenever I define the data type, I'm starting the data type with the capital letter and the remaining as small. So technically, if you like this, you don't see any error. This also will give the same result. Okay, but as a standard, when you define the data type, always we start with capital. Okay, so if you follow those rules, it is good. Okay, and after that we give space. And also variables, people give a, b, x, y, z, right? Something. What they are going to store, we don't know. But if you give first name like this, by seeing that people can understand. I think they are storing the first name of a person. Okay, wherever it is possible, we have to define the variable name in a meaningful way. Okay, so not like ABC, XYZ. In the project, when we start working from day one, so make sure to follow the standards. Make sure to give the proper name. Maybe if it is becoming very big, right? So let's say this is my first variable. Right? If I type everything, it will become big. You see, you can follow the short forms, right? So this is my first variable. I'm not typing full first and variable like that, right? So we use these kind of standards, and also the variable name should be in a camel case. Camel case means starts with small letter, and after that each and every word is a capital letter. That we call as camel case. Okay, so from day one, I recommend you to follow this so that your code looks clean. Okay, data types will start with capital letter. The variable name follow the camel case. If you don't follow, also nothing will happen. But if you follow, you can prove that you are an experienced developer. For you also, when you work on top of that, it will become easy for you to read the code and understand for that purpose. And also there are some rules for sure we have to follow. So let's understand about them. Okay, so variable names. So there are some rules. Variables can have a number, but it should not start with the number. One of the rule. Variable can have numbers, but should not start with number. For example, integer, I cannot give like this. This is wrong. Okay, so if you want, you can give like this. This is valid. Okay, so these kind of rules we should know. And variables cannot have special characters except underscore. Okay, but it's not that it should start with underscore. This is wrong. Okay, so it should be somewhere, not, it should not start maybe from second letter onwards. It can be there anyway. Okay, so that is one of the point. And the variable name should not be the keyword. Variable should not be the keyword. I cannot say integer boolean. That boolean is a keyword. This is wrong. You can say like this. Okay, that is not a keyword. And the variables should not have spaces. Okay, so cannot give like this. It's wrong. Okay, so there should not be any spaces. Okay, so these are some of the rules. We have to follow these rules and define the variables in a proper way. Okay, now we have defined some of the variables, and we also saw how we can assign value, how we can end the statement. So this is what we do as part of the memory statements. Any questions so far, anyone, on understanding this? Okay, so now whatever so far we discussed, so these things we call as primitive data types. So again, there are two different types of data types. So far, whatever I have listed, these we call as primitive data types. Primitive data type means call by value. So what is that call by value? Okay, so call by value means, so when you allocate the memory, let's say here we are allocating the memory, whatever the memory we allocate, the value whatever we assign will store directly into that memory. So all these variables, whatever the memory system allocates, directly into that memory we assign the value. That we call as call by value and primitive data types. So we also have non-primitive data types. Okay, so let me list out the non-primitive type. non-primitive data types. So we call these non-primitive data types as call by reference. Okay, so what is this reference? Okay, so let me explain. So first of all, so what are the non-primitive data types? These are the primitive data types. So what are the non-primitive types? If you see, we created many database tables, right? We call those as objects. We have many custom objects. We have many standard objects provided by Salesforce. All those things we can use as primitive data types, right? The standard object is one of the primitive data types, right? Custom objects we define as a primitive data type. So one of the example, let's say account is one of the standard object provided by Salesforce. This is one of the non-primitive data type. Okay, so non-primitive, the difference between primitive and non-primitive. For the non-primitive data type, we are not going to store the value directly. For the non-primitive data type, we store the location of the data. The data will be somewhere in the database. Where the data is located, that reference, that location of the data we assign. So that's why we call this as non-primitive data type. For all these non-primitive data types, directly assigning value is not possible. So since we are going to store the reference, not the direct data, the reference we create using one of the operator called new, right? New, we have to give like this. So when you say like this, it is allocating the memory to store one of the record into this account. But while assigning to this variable, it is not going to assign the entire data, whatever is there, whatever we keep. It will assign the location of the data, whatever we assign. By using this location, we keep the data into that memory. So these types we call as non-primitive data types. For primitive, right, when you define a string, really no need to define any memory like new string. We don't do that. Directly the value we assign. But here, any non-primitive type, if you take, directly assigning value is not possible. We have to allocate the memory by using new operator. This will assign the location. This variable will hold the location of the data present in the database. So going forward, we'll see how we populate the fields and all other things, but this is the syntax. In the same way, we created many custom objects. So one of the custom object is course__C. Right? This is one of the custom object. So in this also, if you want to store data, we have to allocate the memory and store the data. So for all primitive, non-primitive types, we have to allocate the memory like this. And also there is a generic type, right? S object. When you say S object, into this S object type, you can store, this name can be anything, whatever as a developer, right? S object. You can store, do you want to store account? You can store. Do you want to store some other object information? So any object information in a generic way we can store. So for that we use S object. So this S object is generic to hold any standard or custom object information. Right? It is generic to hold any standard or custom object information. Okay, so and also if you see we have object. So one of the generic type. This is more generic. You can assign anything into this object, string, integer, boolean, file, even non-primitive value also you can assign. That is more generic, but this S object is only generic to hold either standard object or the custom object information. And also going forward, we write some programs using Apex, called as Apex class. The Apex class is also one of the non-primitive data types. So these are the data types we have. So for now, if you don't know this, it is fine. Okay, we'll discuss going forward in detail about this. For now, I'm expecting all of you to understand these primitive data types. So how we can define a memory, right? So technically we call this one as variable. How we define the variable, how we can assign the variables. So those things we should know. Okay, so those are about the memory statements, how we write the memory statement. So for any questions? Any questions on understanding this? How much bytes of memory will be allocated per primitive data type? It is based on the data type. And also, personally, I don't like to remember. Okay, so we have to remember many things. If you are interested, you can see in the logs and see how many bytes it is allocating. Going forward, we'll execute the code and I'll show you how exactly allocate. Yeah, any question? Yeah.
Is there an example for Apex class also for the non-primitive?
Till we did not do it. Okay, so when we get that time, I'll come back and explain. Okay. Still, we are in the process of understanding the basics. Still, we did not start writing a program. So we are understanding when you write a program, what are the different types of statements we write. So the memory statement is one of the first type. Okay. So the next type of statements, arithmetic and the logical statements. So here on day-to-day, when you write the logic, it is very common to assign the value to one of the variable. We need to add some values. We need to subtract some values. Further to use the arithmetic and the logical statements. So one of the first type we should know is the assignment operator. Assignment operator. Using assignment operator. So assignment operator is nothing but equal to. If you want to assign some value, we use this. For example, so let's say we are defining integer number 1, right? So to assign a value, we use equal to what is the number you want to assign, like that, right? So by using assignment, the right hand side value will be assigned to left hand side. So let's say here I'm giving number 2. Now here I'm writing one more statement. Number 2 is equal to number 1. If I write the statement like this, the meaning is in the number 1 variable, whatever the value is there, that value will be assigned to the number 2 variable memory. Into that memory, this value will be assigned. Right? It will transfer the value which is present in this memory into this one. Transfer in the sense, in this also that value will be there. That value, it will also assign to this one. So that is how the assignment operator will work. Going forward, we'll see many other scenarios. The other type is arithmetic and logical statement. Arithmetic, sorry. So let's first deal with the arithmetic statements. Arithmetic operators. We have different types of operators. So we have plus, minus is for subtraction, star multiplication, division, and many more. These are the things which we use on day-to-day. Now, when you do these operations, again, there are different classifications when we do this. Okay, so we have unary operators. We can classify into binary operators. Which one we call as unary operator, which one we call as binary operator, which one we call as ternary operator, we'll discuss. Let unary operators. We have as a unary operators, we see I++. Okay, so this one we call as I equal to I plus 1. Internally, the meaning of that one is I is equal to I plus 1. It will increment the I value by 0. For example, let's say the I value is 0. When this statement is executed internally, it will increment the I value by 1. In shortcut, we use like this. Okay, one value, one operator. We call this as the unary operator. In the same way, we have I minus minus. I minus minus means it will subtract. Internally, the meaning is I equal to I minus 1. Okay, so these are some of the examples of the unary operator. On day to day, these kind of things we use. Okay, when we see that, we should know what is the purpose of this one. Okay, so these are the unary operators and the binary operator. One of the example, let's say integer. Let's say I'm saying result is equal to number 1 plus number 2 minus number 3. Let's say I'm giving like this, right? So maybe already we have this. Let's say I'm result memory allocated into that. I'm adding. Here we have number 1 as 100, number 2 as 400, number 3 as something like this. So when you write like this, what will happen? Even though I have many values and many operators, still this is fall under binary operator. The reason is system won't do the calculation everything at a time. So system take two values and subtract. The result will be added to this. But this one will execute first or this one will execute first. For that, there is a operator precedence. So in the documentation, we have to see system gives first priority for the plus or minus. So based on that, we have to understand and decide the result. But to avoid the confusion, right? So sometimes if you don't think properly, you will see the wrong results. Okay, so for us, in a easiest way to deal, give like this. If you give like this, the meaning is for sure first it will subtract these two numbers. The result it will be adding to this one. Okay, so since at a time it will deal with the one operator and two values. So this one we call as binary operator. This is one of the example. All expressions also we call as binary operator type. Okay, so ternary operator means it's like a conditional statement, but one line conditional statement. So here we use condition. If the condition is true, some expression will be executed. If it is false, the false expression will be executed. Okay, for example, so I'm just checking. If you assume that A is one number and B is one number, if A is greater than B, question mark after that, if A is really greater than B, it execute this expression. Here I'm assigning A value to B. So let's say if A is not greater than B, so B value I am assigning to A. So like that. Okay, so this is how we deal with the ternary operator. So here operators, right? So after this, the true part will be this, and if false, this will be executed. So this we call as ternary operator. So these are the different operators we use while dealing with this. Okay, so one of the next type is about the arithmetic assignment. Arithmetic assignment operator. Maybe with this I'll end this session. Arithmetic assignment. Sometimes how you see like this: number 1 plus equal to number 2. If someone write like this, how we need to understand? They are using the short form. Maybe if you are not comfortable, you'll say number 1 is equal to number 1 plus number 2. We are comfortable like this and we use like this, but when you read someone's code and if they write like that, at least that time we should know how exactly this will work, right? Internally, the meaning of this one is like this, we have to understand. Then they use the short form. In the same way, just for you, right, star is equal to something like this. If someone write, the meaning is x is equal to x multiplied by 1. So these are some of the examples of the arithmetic assignment operators. We also have a few more. Since we don't have time, tomorrow I'll explain about those types. Tomorrow we'll discuss about the relational operators, and also I'll explain about the logical operators and continue with the other basics. So before ending today, any questions, anyone?
Srinu, could you please explain again the arithmetic assignment operator?
Arithmetic assignment. So this arithmetic assignment, so we use arithmetic operator and also the assignment operator like this. When you use like this, the meaning is the left side value, right side value, how it will work. Into left side value, we are adding this left side number plus right side one. Both we are adding and assigning the result to the number 1. So this is the internal meaning of that. The short form, instead of writing this much, simply people write like this: number 1 plus is equal to number 2. Internally, you need to understand like this. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi Srinu. So in
Yeah.
every code, we should use all this logic, like.
It's not necessary, based on the need.
Yeah, I'm actually very new to this coding.
Yeah. So it is not that in all the programs we need to use all these things. It is all based on our requirement. So do you want to add something? Then we use these arithmetic operators. So let's say if you want to increment a value by 1 every time, we use this one. Just we are understanding basics. Based on the need, we use. Maybe in some programs, only we use some of these statements.
So
It's
will
all
you?
based on program. Yeah.
Are you going to, when you start the course, right? You are going to repeat again the same, or else do we need to refer this record?
So I mean, already we are starting, right? So it's not like today. From today, the course is started.
Okay. Because you said like 3 days, 3 different topics as a demo session, right? So are you?
After 3 days, it is a continuation.
Okay. So are you going to share the records from the day 1 or like after the third day?
Yeah, I'll share the first 3 demonstrations also. I'll share.
Yeah, because you know, like I got this coding part when you are explaining. It's really good because it will help if you start sharing from today onwards. By that we can refer from the day 1.
Yeah, understood. But the thing is, I need some time for conversion and sharing. By our morning, India time, morning or afternoon, I'll share.
Okay, Shreen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Srinu, one more thing. Could you please tell me bypass and by reference things one more time?
Sorry, which one?
Hello?
Hello, yeah. So
Yeah.
you are asking
Pass by
about
value and pass by reference thing.
pass by value, pass by reference. You mean to say call by value, call by reference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So call by value means, so when you allocate the memory, so let's say, so what you want to store, so string. So let's say, so something you want to store, let's say address. Okay. So now when I allocate the memory by using the primitive type, so whatever the bytes of memory system allocates directly into that memory, so whatever the value you assign, that will be stored directly into that. Okay, so directly the value will be stored into memory whatever we allocate. So that is called by value. Directly value will be assigned to this. But when you deal with the non-primitive types, so when you scroll down and see, these are the non-primitive types. So let's say there is a table contact. Into this, there is no way to directly assign the value. You cannot assign the value directly to non-primitive type. So what we can assign, where is the data located? That location of the data we need to assign. Let's say if there is no data available in the database, we have to allocate data and store that reference. Okay, so now by using new operator, since there is no data in database, I'm allocating memory, and this will assign the location of the data present in the memory. This, so maybe it is too early to store the data. Maybe just I'm trying to, maybe if you don't understand it is fine. So we just fill the data like this. There are multiple columns in that row. We fill all the data, so like this, right? So now whatever the data we are assigning will be assigned into that memory. But this variable always refer to the location. The data will be somewhere in the database. This variable only holds the reference, the location of the data present in the system. So that is non-primitive type. Okay. So going forward, we'll take more examples and understand. Just a high level, I am trying to explain each and every topic. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more request. I mean, can you able to go little slow more than this?
Yeah, you can ask that if you feel I'm going faster.
I mean, you're going in a slow pace only because it's too much topic, right? Too much information.
Yeah, I mean today, right? So just a step by step only I have explained, right? So if you feel something I'm explaining fast, right? Just let me know and say, okay, so it is going something faster. Can you please explain slowly? I'll explain. Right?
Okay,
So if you don't, I think that you understand.
Srini, I have one doubt. What's the difference between the yes object and the object? I mean, this one is primitive and that one is non-primitive. That part I understand, but both hold only the generic value. So,
Yeah, so but the S object is only generic to hold either standard object or custom object information. So let's say I want to store a number value. I want to store a text value. It won't accept, right? What this can accept is only either the standard object type or custom object type. But if you take object can accept a number, string, date, boolean, whatever you want. But this one only either standard object or custom object. Even it won't allow to store the Apex class also. Okay, so that's the difference.
okay, Srini. Thanks.
So any other questions?
Shrinu, one quick query. When we are using for the custom object, right? So when we declare it, for example, we will not be aware of the exact keyword that we have used for the custom. So when we start coding it, so do we have anything that we can only instead of seeing the application, we cannot know it, Shrinu?
Yeah. So if you
Or
don't
is it
know, the thing is, if you don't know the name of the exact name, whatever you gave, you need to go to that object and copy the API. Let's say I don't know the API name of the course application. I can open this and I can copy this API name. This is what we need to refer. The API name we need to refer programmatically. We copy and paste and use, right? So that's what we do. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.